Perhaps the most notorious of these was aspartame, more commonly known as Equal or NutraSweet. The story of how it became approved by the FDA is startling. By this time, the diet craze was in full swing, and the diet food market was a billion-dollar industry. It was banned in 1973, and another artificial sweetener, cyclamate, had recently been banned when it was found to cause tumors in tests done on animals. Aspartame was initially also rejected by the FDA, but its developer, G.D. Searle, was not having it. Searle presented the FDA 100 different studies that showed it was harmless, studies G.D. Searle had funded themselves. Why not? They knew if they could get it approved, they would make billions. But despite what their studies said, every time an independent study was done, it was found to be dangerous for human consumption. For the first time in history, the FDA sought criminal investigation into a food manufacturer for misrepresenting the safety tests of a product. What the investigation revealed was shocking. Deceased lab animals from the tests were not autopsied for months or even years after their deaths, so that rotting would render any tumor data inaccurate. Other animals were found to have tumors cut out and thrown away. Then the animals with the removed tumors were labeled as normal. Obvious tumors were labeled as normal swelling. The FDA easily ruled that aspartame would not receive final approval. But what would follow was a set of dirty political tricks that must have made Abraham Lincoln roll over in his grave. G.D. Searle first arranged to actually hire the U.S. attorney who was leading the investigation. Samuel Skinner first resigned from the U.S. Attorney's Office, stalling the investigation, then went to work for Searle. Later that year, Donald Rumsfeld was hired on as CEO of Searle. Yes, the same Donald Rumsfeld that was Secretary of Defense during the Bush administration. He appointed several political buddies to top management positions and proclaimed he would get aspartame approved within 1 year. At the time, Reagan had just been elected, and Rumsfeld was part of Ronald Reagan's transition team, who was in charge of choosing a new FDA commissioner. They appointed a man named Arthur Hall Hayes, Jr. One of Arthur Hayes' first acts as FDA commissioner was to appoint a 5-person panel to review the final decision to reject aspartame. 3 of the 5 panel members still voted not to approve it, citing the animal tumors as a big concern. So what did Hayes do? Simple. He appointed a 6th member to tie the vote at 3-3. Then Hayes, a man who knew nothing of food additives, decided he as a commissioner should get a vote also. He then cast the deciding vote himself, in favor of approval. Shortly after this scheme, Hayes resigned from his position as FDA commissioner, after which he was hired by Searle for a position paying hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. I know this sounds like a tale from a political horror movie, but sadly, it is 100% true. After all was said and done, aspartame was approved. Coca-Cola began using it to make Diet Coke, which they then marketed as a weight loss drink. In that first year alone, the FDA received over 600 consumer complaints reporting headaches, dizziness, and other strange reactions to this new, foreign substance our bodies were never designed to handle. But the food conglomerates had won. And since then, over the last 30 years, more and more of these refined sugars, artificial sweeteners, preservatives, and other unnatural elements have infiltrated our food supply, creating essentially a new diet without ever giving us a choice.